it was something I actually did, and I just had never noticed it. And so I started to kind of reflect on that a little bit and think like, really, do I do that? And I realized I did. And I started to kind of bring it into this practice, and in line just with how I see things and see this practice is that I often share the story of Khamralekshi Somo, Tibetan Buddhist nun, and for 40, 50 years, and how her master used to always say, to all the problems, her teacher would always say, blessings, blessings, blessings. Be able to look at situations, no matter what they are, as blessings. And so for me, the same thing with that term beautiful is that, to me, everything we experience, everything we go through, every challenge we face, every hardship, every joy, every sorrow, every tear, everything, it's all beautiful. And it's all an opportunity to sit with life as it is. Because ultimately, that's what Buddhist teachings is. Life as it is. Right? And if you're brand new to this practice, this is your first time here, this is the first time you hear me speak, very often the mind wants to go to horrific things. And very often the mind wants to say, well, those things aren't beautiful. And I just want to clarify that I'm not suggesting the things that people do that are horrific, that those acts are beautiful. I just want to clarify that, right, without getting too far into it. A lot of really disgusting things that are going on and happening in the world. So I'm not drawing a parallel to say that those things in and of themselves are beautiful. But for majority, or if not most of the things in our lives on a day-to-day basis, if we're being really honest with ourselves, are all opportunities to see the beauty in everything that we're experiencing. In all the pain and all the loss and all the sadness. That means you're alive. You have an opportunity to observe and feel and experience everything. And what an incredible, great opportunity to have. And it also, for me as a practitioner, it was a very different way. And again, it was something I didn't even really notice, but it was a very different way to see things than how I was used to seeing things the majority of my life. Which most of the things that I saw and thought and felt, for the first probably 25 to 30 years of my life, I didn't see too much as beautiful. I just saw everything as just not beautiful. It's lacking the proper one word, right? I could list about 15 words, but it was quicker to say not beautiful. And so these are just opportunities to see the beauty in every experience. And so right? When was the last time you thought about going to a burial site for meditation? It's not usually what's on our minds, It's definitely not what's depicted in images, right? Under the beautiful tree or by the ocean, the waves are crashing, you're out flown halfway around the world to go on some fancy retreat to meditate, no, meditate on the fact that everything is impermanent. He wanted them to see the bodies decomposing, to show them, don't waste your life. Don't waste your life being angry and pissed off and miserable and holding resentments and grudges and fears. Don't waste it. Because it's passing, man. Every single breath, every single moment, every single second, we are one step closer to becoming that. And that is the Buddhist teachings on impermanence. And with impermanence and the deep understanding of that, I think cultivates a tremendous sense of gratitude and appreciation. And therefore, life is beautiful, death is beautiful. And here we are. So, with that, we'll sit. For those who are joining virtually, thanks for showing up. Feel free to say hello as you are. There's a chat box somewhere on your screen. A couple things to tell you before we begin. For those who are maybe new or sitting for the first time, nothing's going to happen to you. Right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe, You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, same thing, just trying to push the stomach forward slightly, shoulders are relaxed, hands are on the knees or lap. If you need to move, simply move. It doesn't make you a bad meditator, it just means you need to move. If you are sitting for the first time, you're not trying to think nothing, your mind will not go blank, it will not shut off. It will continue to race just as much as it always does, possibly more. I will say things periodically to remind you that you're lost in thought and bring you back to the present moment. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. Start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting. Breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. And ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize every feel now, if it's quiet, calm and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun, as I spoke about earlier. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation doesn't fix that. It helps you become aware of your life that's a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess so you can then make changes in your life. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do in every moment. And it just repeats. It doesn't change. It doesn't get more complicated. It doesn't get easier. Every day becoming aware of your thoughts and your words and your actions and how that impacts your life and the life of those around you. The difficulty is most people come to Buddhism thinking that that's going to fix stuff out there that you don't like. This practice is not about fixing anything else. It's about becoming aware of your thoughts, your words, and your actions, and how that impacts the world around us. And if you can practice a deeper sense of love and compassion and kindness towards yourself and bring that into the world, then that will absolutely create change. But most people aren't willing to do that first. You can't just sit around and complain and point fingers and blame all day long and expect to be peaceful. It's nobody else's fault you feel the way you feel. It's nobody else's fault you think the way you think. It's nobody else's fault that you're angry and pissed off. It's your own. And for me, this practice was a huge wake-up call to that. It truly was. 22 years ago, realizing that all the shit that was in my head, all the anger and madness and depression, wasn't anybody else's fault. It was mine. And ultimately, it's not about fault or blame either. It's really, fault's not the right word, but that I caused it. I was the creator of it, of the anger and the depression and the sadness. So really remove fault from it or blame. But who created it? Who cultivated that within oneself? Nobody else cultivates the feelings that you have but you. And if you're brand new, you might not like hearing that. But the good news is, the misery that you feel, you know who created that? You. You know what that means? You can change it. It would suck if you spent your life thinking somebody else was responsible for your peace and happiness. Because then you'd spend your entire life looking for someone else to make you peaceful and happy. The beauty of this practice is it's on your shoulders. It's in your hands to enjoy life and be at peace with life as it is. That's what this practice is. It's so difficult. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. Just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, say, and do. That's it. Never changes. So with that, I'll pause. I really prefer responding to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with, and to those who are joined virtually, again, glad you're here. Welcome. Feel free to say hello. There's a chat box there. You can put questions there if you want. And we'll use the rest of our brief time this evening for questions.
So I've heard you say many times, you refer to meditation as direct perception into the present moment. What are we perceiving?
Nothing. Makes life pretty simple, huh? And even if you think you're perceiving something, your perception is wrong. So there's nothing to perceive. It's a good question. It took you 6 months to ask that question. And you know me, I don't like to look at things as progress, but just to throw you a bone, good job.
It was 9 months.
9 months, sorry. I'm a little off, Yeah. It's coming back to, not even coming back to because this isn't Sunday, but referring to the Heart Sutra which for me is, in essence, my practice. And it comes from, it's called the Diamond Sutra, Prajna Paramita, Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. And these sutras are all about duality and understanding that because we have this dualistic mind that thinks this versus that, right versus wrong, good versus bad, something to perceive versus not something to perceive, because of all of that we suffer. And really the Heart Sutra, Diamond Sutra, in essence, would say neither perception nor non-perception. We look at the basic Buddhist teachings, right? Four Noble Truths, Lotus in the Stream. First Buddhist teaching, life is filled with suffering. Right? Doesn't mean all of life sucks, it just means you're going to suffer a lot. Discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction, traumatic, heavy, death, loss, pain, and little stuff. Mayonnaise on your sandwich when you don't want it. Coffee's not made the right way, not enough pumps of latte. Person in the grocery store is going too slow for you. They're still writing checks, whatever it is. Maybe you're the one still writing checks, who knows? Right? Life is filled with these moments. The second is the cause. What is the cause of our suffering? Greed, anger, ignorance. We always want more. We don't like things how we are. We're ignoring reality because we're stuck in thinking our reality is correct. Third Noble Truth is the ending of suffering. And the fourth is the path, having the correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. This is, in essence, addressing our moral, ethical conduct and behavior and all of our actions throughout our day. Right? And then the Heart Sutra comes along and says, to all of that, there's no suffering. There's no cause of suffering. There is no cessation of suffering, and there is no path whatsoever. There is no wisdom or any attainment. With nothing to attain, Bodhisattvas relying on Prajna Paramita, perfection of wisdom, attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, supreme ultimate enlightenment. So with nothing to attain, you will attain. Clear? Beautiful. I look forward to sitting with you for another 9 months. What else? That's great. I think this is so funny. Sorry. Who said that? I got one. Let me since I just laughed, and there's a question here that says, can you explain your intro again because the video cut out or was delayed? That's great. Not really. Everything's beautiful. Go ahead.
So I guess kind of
the fact that it cut out was beautiful, so you're good. Don't worry. Sorry.
Similar to this question, I guess I've been practicing pretty regularly, almost every day for about 5 years.
Yeah.
But I always do something different, noting sometimes silence, sometimes like binaural beats. Is there a purpose? Is there a consistency or a type of meditation for a specific outcome or result, or like slowing down thought? Like, is there a consistency or cadence that you should follow? Or
sure. Yeah, so the question, to paraphrase for those virtually maybe didn't hear it, in essence, you've been practicing every day, pretty consistently 5 years. You have your practice, and so your question is around, is there, you mentioned something about beats. I don't even know what those are. Is that like beats, like Dr. Dre beats, or what?
It's like some sort of sound that goes with the both.
So noise.
Yeah.
Noise, okay. So it's a calming noise, which would not be. So what I do suggest is that, you know who Suzuki Roshi is? Shunryu Suzuki, he built San Francisco Zen Center, 50s, 60s. Really, Buddhism in America, so much is credited to San Francisco Zen Center, Suzuki Roshi, at that time. He came in to a very traditional Japanese community, which was wonderful, but this was San Francisco in the 60s. Which, some of us were there, we all know what that was like, or we can imagine the fun that was. And he, in essence, turned his back on the Japanese community to introduce Buddhism to the local Western culture. And he would say for Buddhism to take root in a new country, it's like 100 to 200 years. And it's as simple as holding a flower next to a rock and expecting the flower to grow out of the rock. That's how difficult this stuff is that we're trying to embrace into our Western cultural lives, right? So if it takes you a little bit, give yourself a break, right? But to your question around different types of meditation, I'm just paraphrasing what everybody else always says, do you listen to stuff? Are there mantras? Guided meditation is silent. There's a sutra where the Buddha literally says sitting, standing, walking, or lying down, referring to meditation practices. And another sutra, Anapanasati Sutra, starts out by saying, if you're breathing in and taking a short breath, know you're breathing in and taking a short breath. If you're breathing out, taking a long breath, know you're breathing out, taking a long breath, right? What he's talking about is simple observation and awareness of sensation of breath. not to figure it out, not to understand it, not to analyze it, just to observe it. For me, that's the Zen practice, is an awareness and observation of sensation of breath. You ever looked at a person and not judged them? No. You ever looked in the mirror and not judged yourself? No. You ever eaten food and not judged it? No. You ever wondered why you suffer so much? Because your judgment. Do I like these sounds? Do I not like these sounds? Coming back to Suzuki Roshi, which is good because I completely forgot the point of why I brought him up to begin with. There's very few, might even be the only one, but there's an actual YouTube footage out there of him talking about noise versus sound. So if you Google like Suzuki Roshi, noise versus sound, and he's talking about the difference, right? And so I mentioned noise and you said sounds because it was calming, because you don't like the word noise, because noise we think of as what? Noise. And noise has a negative connotation to it. But sound to you could be peaceful, right? Maybe the flow of running water is peaceful. Unless you have a fear of drowning or you have to pee. Right? So we associate things. That's the problem. Is that we create these boxes and constructs of how we want things to be. Even coming back to meditation, you asked very clearly in your question to get us somewhere, almost as if you're saying, like, what's going to get me there quicker? What's going to work? There are 1,000 types of meditation, right? None of them necessarily good or bad or right or wrong. If they tell you to, jump off a cliff and pay them a bunch of money, it's probably the wrong one for you. Otherwise, see what you'll sit with. I do suggest after, especially if you've been at it for 5 years, I do think it is beneficial. I'm a big fan for people early on. There's guided meditations, there's silent meditations, there's mantras, there's, as I mentioned, the sitting, standing, walking, lying down. It's really a metaphor for the fact that meditation is a concentration and focus on present moment. And you can do that in, as Thich Nhat Hanh always talks about, eating and walking and cooking and cleaning. These are all meditative practices. So early on, I think it's good to kind of play with different types and see what resonates with you. And then kind of settle on one. And just stick with that. But without expecting anything from it. One might think, well, I've been at this 5 years. Has it worked yet? I've been doing this every single day for 22 years. Nothing has ever worked. Nothing has ever happened. Ever. Nor will it ever. But it's stopped me from doing a lot of stupid shit. Because you know what you're doing when you're sitting down and breathing? Nothing. You're just sitting and breathing. So, music, no music, beats, no beats, noise, no noise, doesn't matter. Just sit. Yeah. Yeah. What else? Yeah. I just see a hand. There we go. Hi. Yeah.
Yeah, not what you mentioned about everything is beautiful, and it's usually our fault about everything. How do you suggest dealing with emotions around betrayal?
Yeah, and I really want to clarify. I kind of corrected myself, but fault is a terrible word. So just kind of try to, strike that from the record. I never as a practice like to think of something as my fault versus someone else's fault. But I am very clear about the fact that I'm creating these conditions within me, these thoughts within me, these emotions within me. I'm creating them. Now, to your question about how do I kind of justify, what I'm hearing you say is, how do I justify beautiful and fault with betrayal, right? So again, remove the word fault. But this idea of betrayal, the Buddha said that we suffer because we want things to be a certain way. And so we want people to not betray us. So one might think, well, is it wrong to not want to be betrayed? No. It's not wrong to not want to be betrayed. But if someone is betrayed, that's literally just what happened. We then choose how to respond to that. And most people would choose to respond to that probably not too favorably, right? Most people wouldn't walk up to somebody and pat them on the back and say, well, thank you. 30 more years. Like, thank you. But Buddhist teachings on attachment will say, no, I'm attached. They need to. That's all about a projection you're throwing onto them. People show you that to happen. I get that. But we come into this are in the same place you are in various ways. And so I honor and appreciate you bringing that up. It's brave to even say that. But I would say beautiful. Now the family and the friends and what everybody's going to say about it. Yes. I've never looked at Buddhism as a thing that's easy. It is a then you know what they want. Beautiful to have the truth out there. Most people spend their life. Yeah, a lot of hands after that one. Go ahead in the back, and then we'll that in Sri Lanka. And he came here about 40, 50 years ago to share Buddhism in this culture. And so his local temple is in Los Angeles. So we've been friends with them for maybe 10 years, really. But often some of the younger disciples and monks come down and teach. So last night, Venerable Bhante Ananda came down. One of the monks came to teach. And really beautiful. Wasn't that great? The touch and go kind of thing he was talking about. Really wonderful kind of teaching on non-attachment. But very traditional in that culture, as many Buddhist cultures have their own little rituals and things, is they take little kind of, you can kind of see it here. It's like almost like a little bracelet thread. And they'll do chanting as they did last night. So everybody kind of, when he was done, he said he would do it. Everybody lined up and they came up and he puts it around your wrist and he did a little chanting in Pali. And so it's a blessing. It's a blessing for good health and less suffering and to be carefree and pain-free. And so he chants and does a blessing for you and then ties it into this. Very often you'll see this a lot in Sri Lankan culture. They do also, I've seen it within Thai and Lao, Cambodian culture, but specifically Sri Lankan culture. So the word sutra, like the Buddhist sutras, the teachings, the word sutra means thread. And so the idea is that it's a thread of the teaching. So very specific, I'll just say Sri Lankan practice. Very often when they're chanting, they'll take like it's a spool, is that what it is? That has all the yarn on it or whatever, thread. They'll take a spool and they'll like unravel it. And so here he is holding the spool, and now every single person in the room will be holding a piece of that thread. It would go all the way around, so we're all holding that thread, that sutra, as they chant. So it's like this kind of symbolic way of connecting everybody. And then when that's done, they'll roll it back up, or very often then cut it into small pieces, and everybody then gets a piece of that. So you have been fully blessed. Didn't you feel different today? Yeah. Yeah. And as I came up at the end to get mine, without throwing her under the bus, Meredith said, "God knows Jeff needs it." So I'm still wearing my old one, and I can never have too many blessings. Yeah.
Mine won't, I don't think, be as easy, but maybe it will be. So you in the beginning, David asked the question about direct perception into what, and then discussing the idea that we certainly in this Western culture have a tendency to everything's good or bad, or it has some meaning rather than just being.
Yeah.
So the idea of moving towards letting go of the good or the bad and just I don't like the word accepting,
embrace.
Right, okay, embrace. Isn't that perception?
Yeah.
So that would be the.
No, I'm not saying yes yet. I'm just kind of go ahead. Yeah.
Well, that's
what are we embracing? Is that what you're?
No, just that the idea that the letting go or the learning to let go of the judgment of it is in fact a perception.
Got it. So I think what you're asking is, how do you let go without recognizing that there's something you have to let go of?
Say that again?
Let me just ramble.
Okay, that'd be great.
So the idea is that, first off, for me, even though I say it and we often hear this idea of letting go, it's really, letting go is different from being with or embracing present moment. Yes, as you said, we label things as good and bad, right? And those are these constructs. Things happen, right? In this Western culture, we have this kind of way of saying things happen for a reason, meaning bad things happen, we try to spin it to feel good about ourselves or create a better situation out of a bad situation, right? It's just what we're kind of conditioned to do. And so we want to give things meaning. And for me, what Buddhism is really presenting is, instead of saying things happen for a reason, which is really just a justification for why things happen, Buddhist practice to me is just things happen. And back to your question about the perception or being with things, it's just coming back to sensation of breath of, I'm just in this moment. And I'm not picking up this idea of good or bad. I'm not picking up this idea of what is my perception, even back to the question to, okay, I won't make you wait 9 months for this one, but the idea is that it's not so much what am I perceiving, but it's really about knowing that what you're perceiving is not what? True. Real. Correct. Because it's only what? Your perception. Yes, it's thoughts, but it's thoughts based on your perception. And our perception is not truth. So there's not even anything to pick up, metaphorically. I haven't done this one in a while, but I feel like doing it now. And if you've seen this, please don't give away the secret. So there's like 2 Buddhist magic tricks out there. Fortunately, I know both of them. But for those who've never seen this magic trick, what is this? Bowl. What else? Metal. What else? Round. Anything else? Empty cup. Okay. What is it now? It's a hat. Why did it become a hat? I put it on my head. Did it ever change? It was all those things. It became a hat. If I take Lucky Charms, I pour Lucky Charms and, some almond milk in there, all of a sudden it's cereal bowl. This never changed. What changed was our perception of it. Is our perception of this correct? Is this any of those things? Is it all of those things? Form, again, from the Heart Sutra, form is emptiness. That's what the third, fourth really, but the calligraphy back there on the wall, the piece there, its form is precisely emptiness, emptiness is precisely form, also from the Heart Sutra, where it's saying this is not any of those things, and it is all of those things. It is based on what our perception sees it as, and that creates how we use it. But how our perception is of it and how we use it doesn't mean that's what it is. Because this is a million things to a million different people. Always happy to clarify that stuff, yeah.
So, how do you define what is right speech, right action, right etc. when everything is morally relativistic or just a matter of perception?
Yeah, no, for sure. Good question. As opposed to the others that, were also a good question. So the question was, how do you define right? So before I even get to that, I want to go back to an afterthought on kind of the defining this thing, especially those who are new. And then I'll get to that, but it kind of ties into that anyways. Why is this example and what I just talked about important, right? Anyone been angry about something for 5 years or 30 years? You have an idea of it. You tell yourself that story over and over and over again. You're locked in. It's never going to change. You get into an argument with somebody yesterday and you're going to carry it with you, God knows for how long, because you have an exact idea of what you think is right and how things should be, as opposed to seeing things that happen. And seeing, this is referring to the emptiness, form is precisely emptiness, emptiness is precisely form, referring to the emptiness teachings in Buddhism, doesn't mean that nothing's there. It means that everything is different from how we perceive it to be. So all of your fear, all of your anger, all of your resentment, all of your sadness can all be very different from how you perceive it. But you're stuck. You're locked in on how you think it should be. And you've not allowed yourself to create anything other than that box. Right? So to the question on Eightfold Path, using the words correct. So difficult in English language, in all languages really, to translate these things. But very often the Eightfold Path, which is the path to end suffering, uses the word correct or right. I often like to look at it as beneficial. What was the one? Healthy. So I think really correct and right are not the right or correct translations. I love beneficial is what I used to say. I love healthy. So now looking at what are healthy. And what you're saying, which is interesting because, and you're right, I mentioned it earlier, but Karma Lectu Soma used to say Buddhist practice without moral, ethical, or meditation without moral, ethical conduct and behavior is not Buddhist practice. The Buddha had 227 to 311 precepts for the Sangha, the disciples, the monks and nuns to follow, to create a healthy Sangha, healthy community, healthy environment. These precepts are not there to restrict them and ruin their lives. They were there to keep themselves and the community safe and healthy, just like traffic lights, right? The traffic lights aren't there to ruin your life. They're there to help you and warn you when it's going to get dangerous for you to go forward. We don't have to stop at a red light. Many people choose to because it keeps us and others safe. They even warn us with a yellow light. Wouldn't it be nice if life was filled with yellow lights to warn us before we do something stupid that's going to harm somebody, right? To me, the Dharma, the teachings, are those yellow lights. To understand that if we have a healthy view, that the world is not about us, that everyone is equal, right? If we have healthy thought, speech, and action, which in essence is our karma, healthy thought, speech, and action, meaning is it beneficial to ourselves and the world around us? Is it causing pain and suffering? Instead of looking at these things as right and wrong, good and bad, is it causing pain and suffering? We don't have to define that as good or bad. We can just experience, are we causing pain and suffering? Right? Livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration is what we're bringing into the world. Is how we're focusing and training our mind, is how we're interacting with others. Is it healthy and beneficial, or is it unhealthy and not beneficial? I don't know if unbeneficial is a word, but you get my point. So, yes, it is very easy to say, well, the Buddha said this is right versus wrong. The Buddha was just a dude. He was just a human. He was very clear. He said, do not believe these things because I'm saying them. He was not a god. He didn't want people to follow him like a god. He was just a dude teaching people how to live a peaceful, happy life. And he said, here are the teachings, try them. If they work for you and they make you a kinder, gentler, happier person, then by all means, implement it into your life. If not, abandon them. Jesus, if we all followed the words of Jesus, we'd be a healthier group of people. Pretty sure he said a lot of good stuff, So, no right, no wrong, but definitely actions that cause pain and suffering, And again, if you're brand new to this stuff, it's like, well, what do you mean there's no, you can walk out of here and say, well, Buddhism says nothing is wrong, right? So we can go harm people. That's wrong. Yeah. But I also want to say that, even coming back to some comments I made earlier, that these decisions that we make with our thoughts and our words and our actions is to be very mindful, because our thoughts and words and actions are very powerful. They really do have an opportunity to create pain and suffering in our lives, or joy and happiness in our lives, and the same for others. So we want to be mindful of which is our karma, our thoughts and our words and our actions. It's what we bring into the world. We want to be mindful and aware of that, because it leaves an imprint, leaves an impact. Does that help? Kind of on the right, wrong thing? Yeah. What else? We'll do one more before we close. Yeah. 2 more, and we'll close. Yeah.
So, with the touch and go concept, I suppose after tonight, it's even less clear for me the go component.
Okay. Yeah.
If you actually redefine letting go and acceptance as embracing, because then embracing becomes the touching. So then what is the go? I can't get
So to back up a little bit, for me, just as an unenlightened, ignorant dude looking at Buddhist teachings, I like the word embrace from a Buddhist mindset versus accept, because for me, at least in the English language, if I say I'm going to accept this, what does that typically mean you think about it? You don't like it, I don't like this, but I'll accept it. I don't like the way you're treating me, but I'll accept it. I don't like this food, but I'll accept it. To me, embrace it isn't about like, the other danger with the word embrace, not danger, but the other way to translate embrace could be like hugging. And I don't look at, that's not to me what embrace is either. To me, embrace in this way is being with it as it is, right? So then kind of the touch and go is to understand that, I don't know if this is relevant or not, but there's a great...
And like grappling with
Okay.
non-attachment. You know, it's like, how do you actually practice non-attachment and non-fear?
Oh, okay.
Rather than just conceptualize
Yeah.
it. You know, not just sitting with it, but actually practicing it in your life.
So to sum up non-attachment, especially for those who maybe are new and have never heard it, non-attachment is not, often people here say detached or unattached. Non-attachment is not a cutting off or a severing of. Non-attachment is actual love. Non-attachment is absolute love. Without control, manipulation. Anyone ever been in a relationship and loved someone and spent many years just trying to control and manipulate everything they ever did? Maybe I'm the only one in the room. Right? So love is actually just embracing and allowing and appreciating people for who and how they are. Because that's their life. Yes, their life impacts our life. Back to the earlier question about betrayal. But that's them. Their betrayal, right? I spent years treating people like shit. That had nothing to do with them. It was me. So non-attachment is being able to love, you think about family, parents, children, for who and how they are. Non-attachment is not that you cut them off or that you don't care. Years ago there was I won't say which, but another religious group that came here doing like a study. They were college kids. And one of the students, her first question when we opened up was, she said, I heard Buddhists can't love their mother because they don't attach to them. I'm super glad she asked that question because I got to really shift her thinking, which she then got into Buddhism and came back 5 years later and been studying it ever since. It's love. And when you love people, you love them for who and how they are. And how you practice that is be with people for who and how they are. Now, if it's unhealthy, if it's toxic, if it's dangerous, I'm not suggesting we allow ourselves to be physically, mentally, emotionally abused. Not at all. Remove ourselves from that situation. But we can't always do that. You can't always... Family members, for example. Holidays ask this question in November. Holidays are the best time to practice non-attachment. Sit there at the dinner table and just shut up and listen. Yeah. So fun. Yeah, and then we'll close.
I started the practice because I was really distraught. So I started meditating, and then I came to the conceptualization of liberation. I finally understood it. I understood the interdependence of everything, and I felt like I was done, almost. I felt satiated, finally. And I let go of the meditation practice, and now I feel like I'm coming right back, and it's like I can never let go of this mind. I feel like I'm almost a prisoner of this mind, so if I don't practice every day, I'll be right back where I started, and I felt like I finally made it. And it's never ending.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I'm back with a humility and a respect for the practice and how far it's gotten me, because I feel like the biggest problem is the mind identifies with the self and then it gets injured. And I understand that all of this is not real. Even if we perceive something, it's just literally in our mind. But my question was, in meditation, is it more of a somatic practice, or is meditation really just training the mind? And if it's just mind, then isn't all mind? So I feel like meditation could also be used as an energetic release, like in a somatic practice, more than just training the mind. Is that so?
Yeah, I mean, I'll close with this thought, and I don't have a lot of experience, looking at different somatic practices and things like that. I can just say a couple things that I think would help for you to literally just Google Yogacara. Yogacara, C-A-R-A. It's a school of Buddhism referred to as the mind-only school. And it talks very specifically about Alaya Vijnana, which means storehouse consciousness. And that is the collection of your consciousness for endless time that we are sitting with at this moment, right? Again, this is coming, as you know, from Buddhist teachings. At the time of the Buddha, they all believed in rebirth, reincarnation, whatever you wanted to call it. Like, that was not strange to them. One life and then you're going to heaven or hell, that would have been strange to them. Fast forward 2,500 years, and this idea of rebirth, reincarnation, or continuation of consciousness is strange to us because of the cultures and the religious beliefs that we all grew up in, right? But at that time, endless continuation of consciousness. And so I think that may, just theoretically add more questions to your journey, which I think is always good. But to your first comment, yeah, beautiful. I mean, the humility, when I heard you say, you thought you kind of got there and you were like, I'm good, I don't need to do this anymore. And then, you kind of come back to it, like, I would be afraid to stop practicing. Really, it's just keep each moment, each day. And I think also, and I'll close with this thought, for everybody, whether you've been at it a long time, 5 years, day one, like, there's no timeline. There's no race. This isn't a class that you get a grade at the end. It's not a 6-month program that you're hoping to get a certificate and make sure that you achieved something. Every single day is going to be difficult in your life. And some days more than others. And this is a practice to hopefully have, as I always say, I'm not trying to end suffering anytime soon. For me as a practitioner, if I can suffer a little bit less today than I did yesterday, then I'm great, And if I suffer more today than I did yesterday, I'm great. That's life. It's beautiful just as it is. So we'll close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Gracie Hatch during her time of healing and her family who suffers and is healing as well at this time. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. All right, a few quick announcements before you all head out from our Dharma Bum host, Eddie. And while Eddie's coming up, just one quick announcement. Tomorrow night, Bob, who's taught on and off for the last year or two, he's starting a new 4-week series on mindfulness and Eightfold Path tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, Wednesdays at 7 for the next 4 weeks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eddie. I'm tonight's host. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction problems, and our food redistribution program meets every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and then bring it back whenever you're done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. If a few people could stay to close and latch the windows, that would be helpful. Thank you for being here. We wish you well and hope to see you all again.